This is the video for topic 4 part 2. So more word problems, but this time we're given the x and y intercepts. So the graph on the right shows the distance remaining to complete a tunnel. The first thing we need to do is write an equation that represents the distance after x months. So the first thing I need to do is figure out what the slope is. I can use rise over run. I'm just going to calculate given the 2 points using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we end up with the slope of negative 500, and then we already have the y-intercept is on the graph, 0, 3,500. So I can write plus 3,500. There's my equation. I could have also written it in point-slope form, but I think slope-intercept form is a little easier to look at. Next, we're going to find the x-intercept and interpret its meaning in the context of the problem. So the x-intercept is at 7, 0. We need to interpret this in context. So what that means is, what does the x value represent? What does the y value represent? So we'll start with the x value of 7. That means after 7 months, because that's the label that we see on the x-axis, is the time in months. So we need to use those label words. So that takes care of the x value. Now let's take care of the y value. So the tunnel is done. The reason I said that is because the y-axis is the distance remaining in feet. So if there's 0 distance remaining, that means we're done the tunnel. So that took care of the y value. Anytime we interpret the intercepts, we have to talk about what the x value means and what the y value means. Next, we'll look at the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0, 3,500. What does that mean? All right, what does the 0 as x mean? It means after 0 months, aka at the start of the tunnel digging, the beginning. Now, what does 3,500 represent? There's 3,500 feet remaining because, again, that's what the y-axis label is. So that's interpreting x and y intercepts. We've got to talk about the x, talk about the y. All right, next we're looking at the amount in gallons of gas after driving X hours. So we're actually given the equation. The first thing we need to do, it says to graph. So let's make our labels. I'm just going up by 1 on my y-axis, that's gallons, and then again I'm going up by 1 on my my x-axis, and that is hours. So let's go ahead and graph this. The y-intercept's 12, so I'll plot a point there, and then I have a slope of negative 2. So I can make that negative 2 over 1, which means I'm rising negative 2 and running 1. So I graphed the equation. Now let's talk about what those x and y intercepts mean. So the x and y intercepts are 0, 12, and 6, 0. So let's start with the y-intercept. That's 0, 12. So again, talk about what does 0 mean, what does 12 mean in terms of the labels. So at the start of the trip, aka 0 hours into it, there was 12 gallons of gas in the tank. So that talks about the y. Now let's move on to the x-intercept. So that's 6, 0. The 6 represents the number of hours. So after 6 hours, again, that's the x value. Now let's talk about the y value. 0 represents the number of gallons. So there's no gas left. 0 gallons. Part C, after how many hours are there 5 gallons left? 2 ways we can do it. We can look at the graph line up where 5 is, which, is right there. But I think the best way to get an exact amount is to just plug in gallons for y. So y is negative 2x plus 12, and gallons is our y value, so plug in 5 for y. And solve for x. So we get 3.5 hours. All right, the average lifespan of American women has been tracked, and the model for the data is y equals 0.2t plus 73, where t equals 0 means 1960. So I circled the y-intercept, which is 73. Well, what does that mean? That's the point 073, and it tells you that t equals 0 corresponds to 1960. So that means in 1960, we'll talk about what 73 means. That is the lifespan of a woman. So the average lifespan of a woman was 73 years. All right, here's a you-try. You're going to have to interpret the x and y intercept for this equation. The graph's on the right. Have fun. That will conclude this video. Thanks for listening.